Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. Glad
How
to
you
be
doing?
here.
How you doing tonight?
Good. Doing real good. It's Friday night. Got a drink.
It is indeed.
Drinking a
All
drinking a
right.
quirk.
Nice. I'm drinking hot tea. Nothing fancy tonight.
Yeah.
All right. So you're my first painter. Is that how you classify yourself? Are you a painter?
I am a painter.
Okay.
Yes. Artist painter. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. So where's that story start?
Well, it doesn't start too long ago. I didn't even know I could draw until I was in my 40s, well into my 40s. Never even took art in school or anything. So I really had no knowledge of the fact that I had any kind of artistic talent whatsoever. Never even tried to draw anything, and just kind of stumbled across it. I coached my daughter in sports, and one day took her and some of her friends to a KU softball game and had a photo, really nice little, back when we printed photos of a softball player up to bat, and just on a whim picked up my older daughter's sketch pad and tried to sketch it out, and lo and behold, it looked just like her. I had no idea I could do that, and it just went from there. I started,
Wow.
it was crazy. I started basically with graphite drawings and started doing some commissioned work for people. They'd ask me, since I did coach girls sports, folks were asking me to do drawings of their daughters, playing basketball and softball and that sort of thing, and gradually started doing charcoal drawings. Still wasn't painting at that point. And then I started entering some competitions, local art show competitions and that sort of thing, and started doing real well, and placing artwork and getting ribbons for it and that sort of thing. I thought, wow, I could probably do this. And
Nice.
yeah, started painting, and then pretty soon I was entering national competitions, like magazine competitions and things like that, and was getting in national art magazines, and then I kind of hit what I consider the big moment for me, where that kind of launched my career. I did a charcoal drawing called Rosina's Apple, of a woman biting an apple, and they put it on the cover of American Artist magazine, and
Wow.
that got me a lot of notice, and
Sure.
led to a lot of things. That led to me working on a Clint Eastwood project out in Carmel, a film where I did all the artwork for it, and went out to Carmel for 3 months and got to do
Wow.
that. And yeah. And also led to getting to draw the cover of the Strathmore drawing pad. I don't know
I
how familiar you are with
I
drawing
do.
pads.
I actually think
Actually, I have one right here. That's it.
I've
That's the
got that actually that
do
one.
you have it?
I
Well,
do.
that's my
That's
drawing
you.
on there. Yeah,
Wow.
that's actually was my assistant Aaron, that I grabbed to do a drawing of her, for the cover. They came to me and asked me if I would do that, and that was like 10 years ago, and of course that drawing pad is sold all over the world, so that's gotten me a lot of attention, getting that opportunity. So
Well, yeah.
um, yeah, and then I started painting in oil, and I just kind of skipped all the acrylic and all the things that normal art students go through to try and learn how to paint. I just jumped right into oil, and then I fell in love with it, and that's what most of my work now is all oil paintings, and have a couple of galleries that represent me, and probably I would say 85-90% of the paintings that I do are all commissioned. So I do because I do figurative work, primarily portrait figurative work. I get lots of commissions, so I stay pretty busy with those, and then every once in a while I can do some figurative pieces or whatever on my own that then sell through the galleries. But,
Wow. All right.
yeah.
You just gave me a ton, so double back to at some point. All right. So you pick up charcoal. Now, you're completely no schooling? You didn't go to school for any of this?
No,
It was
no,
all self-taught.
I didn't even take art in high school. I mean,
Yeah.
I was, on the straight, college prep track, and didn't really take any art classes. So I always loved art. I mean, I loved to go to museums and that sort of thing. I mean, that was always fun for me, and I was very appreciative of art, and kind of read a lot about art history and that sort of thing. But I never thought that. I mean, like a lot of people, I just thought the best I could do was a stick figure. I never even tried to draw somebody's face before, until that one day I sat down just on a whim and tried to draw this softball player, and
I mean, were you
surprised.
stunned? Like,
I was shocked, and my wife was shocked. I have 3 daughters; they were all shocked. They were like,
yeah.
how'd you figure out how to do that?" And it was just a sort of a bizarre thing. I was an IT project manager. I mean, that was that was how I made a living, and did that for many years, until I gave that up 13 years ago. I've been doing art full time for about 13 years now. But yeah, I worked for H&R Block for many years. It's quite a transition going
Sure.
from H&R Block to being an artist. But yeah, I worked in their digital group, on projects and that sort of thing, and left
Wow.
that to do art full time. So
That is wild.
pretty
So,
pretty strange.
all right. So you're now when the call from Eastwood camp comes out here, like
Yeah.
where, I mean, first of
Well,
all,
that
yeah,
that was very bizarre. I mean, I was, I'm just a, Prairie Village guy, been living here for 40 years, and I get a call from this young director who Clint Eastwood didn't direct it. He just kind of like packaged it or whatever, put it together. But
produced it.
he had this young director that spotted my magazine cover at Barnes and Noble, and they were looking for someone who it's a movie called The Forger, starred Josh Hutcherson, Hayden Panettiere,
Okay.
Alfred Molina. It was
Wow.
yeah, a lot of people in it, and Clint's son Scott Eastwood was in it, and his then wife Dina was in the movie too. But it was about a teenage art prodigy in Carmel who gets involved in forgery, and Lauren Bacall plays this art matriarch
Man.
of Carmel. It was actually her last film.
Oh, wow.
And so they were looking for someone who could draw and paint women in particular, and with dramatic eyes, and be able to show emotion, in the faces and that sort of thing. And he spotted my cover on the magazine and contacted me just out of the blue. Said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming out and working on a film in Carmel? Do you have about 3 months to spare?" I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Who is this really?
Yeah.
I thought I was being punked or something,
All right.
and yeah. So it was pretty crazy. I went out there basically for 3 months. I went out for a month, came back for the holidays, went back out for 2 months while they were filming the movie. They even asked me to be their on-site still photographer, which I had no idea even really what that was. I had to go back and Google
All right.
sure, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I was on the set every day doing all the behind the scenes photography for the making of the film and that sort of thing. So I got to meet everyone and hang out with them, and that was that. And Carmel, I don't know whether you've ever been to Carmel.
I
I have
haven't
never been there before, and it is just gorgeous. I mean, oh
really.
my gosh. They put me up in Pebble Beach. I was in a couple different houses in Pebble Beach, one right next to Clint Eastwood's home in Pebble Beach, and then I was in another one when I came
Wow.
back for 2 months. And I mean, it was just like the most incredible experience ever. I mean, everybody should get a chance to make a film like that at some point in
Yeah.
their lives, because it's pretty cool.
Wow. That
Yeah.
that's just blowing my mind. All right. So you do that, and
Mhm.
then does the sketchbook, did that come after that, or was that before that?
That came shortly after that. In fact, the cover that I got with American Artist Magazine,
Right.
in the article about me, I mentioned, they asked me what my materials were, and of course I was just drawing primarily then with charcoal, and I told them I used Strathmore. In the article it said I used Strathmore paper and pads and that sort of thing on my drawings. Well, few weeks after that magazine came, I got this big case in the mail of all these Strathmore sketch pads and paper and all that. Said, thanks for mentioning us, and I learned something from that. I mentioned it in the article. And so I, having come from a business background and especially marketing and that sort of thing, I saw an opportunity to kind of touch base with these guys, and I kind of struck up a relationship with their marketing person, and they started using some of my drawings on their website and in their catalogs that they send out to retailers. I was on the cover of their catalog and was in there. So when they decided, again, this was like probably 10 years ago, they decided to redo all their sketch pads. They have a ton of different sketch pads for various uses, and the 400 series one that I'm on the cover is by far and away their most popular sketch pad. And they just came to me and said, hey, could you do the cover of the sketch pad for us? And we'd just like you to do a face of a woman with dramatic eyes. That's kind of what they were looking for, because they knew I was pretty good at that. So I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I grabbed my assistant Erin. I said, hey, you want to be on the cover? She was an art student at the time. And I said, you want to be on the cover of the Strathmore Drawing Pad? She's like, sure. So we went out and did a little photo shoot down in the West Bottoms to get the right image. And then I did the drawing and sent it out to them. So it's been on there ever since.
Wow.
It's been pretty cool.
That is very cool. Is that how you work primarily? You get photo shot and then go from there?
Yeah. I work primarily from photos. So in fact, I've done photography since I was pretty young, and I've always been known that I was pretty good at it. So I always had kind of a good eye for color and composition and light and that sort of thing. And so I typically if I'm going to do a figurative painting or whatever, I'll enlist a model or models or whatever. We'll do a shoot. It might be outside, it might be in my studio, whatever, depending on the painting. I'll shoot a ton of images trying to find the right ones for the painting, and then I select that. Then I basically just pull it up in Photoshop or whatever. I have a big monitor that you can't see that's right here. I'll pull it up on the monitor and then sketch it out on the canvas and paint it. Basically, I play around now. I use a lot of digital things to try and play around with the image before I actually do the painting. So in fact, I use a program on my iPad called Procreate, which a lot of artists use, and it's a great program. And so I'll pull images in there and I'll play around with color ideas and that sort of thing, composition and stuff before I actually. It's sort of like the artists in the old days, and even some today, will do little thumbnail images, trying to decide on color. Well, now I just do that digitally, on the iPad, which is a great way to do it. In fact, I'll even take a painting when it's partially done. A good example is this Charlie Parker painting behind me that I just finished recently.
Just gorgeous.
Well, thank you. And when I was halfway done with it, I took a picture of it, pulled it into Procreate, played around with some color ideas. Wasn't sure where I wanted to lay what colors and that sort of thing. And I get some ideas, and then I go back to the canvas and work with them. So it's a great tool to have.
Yeah. Okay. So how long did Charlie Parker, for instance, how long did that take start to finish?
Yeah. Gosh, that's hard to say, because usually I'm working on multiple projects.
Fair.
And I might work 2 hours one day, and then I skip a few days, and then I'm working on something else, and I come back to it. But I would say probably overall, probably 15 to 20 hours went into it, maybe 25, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
I would say.
Wow.
And that's the actual sketching it, painting it kind of time. That doesn't include the kind of pre-production time that you spend, kind of deciding how you're going to paint it, coming up with colors and that sort of thing. But yeah, once I start working on something, I go pretty fast. I've got this one behind me is one that's not quite done yet that I'm actually working on now. And I don't know if you can see that. It's a figurative painting of a woman with a skateboard over her head. Yeah. And so I'm working on that one now, and that one's been, I had to take a little break because my youngest daughter got married last week, and so I did a surprise painting of my daughter and now her husband to surprise them with at the wedding. So I kind of stopped that one, painted that one, then got back to this one. So it's just about done. I'll finish it this weekend, but yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. You kind of answered it already, but I was going to ask what's a typical, because you do this full time now. You do commission work.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
okay. What's a typical day look like for you?
I don't know if I have a typical day. And it's been a little strange, as it is for a lot of people with the whole pandemic thing going on, because I've been working primarily for the last year at my home studio, which I'm at now. I got a little room off the back of the house that I can use as a studio, and have plenty of space to paint here. But my actual studio that I work at is in the Crossroads, above the Lady Volkus Art Center. I share a big space with 4 other artists there, and I'm hopefully going to transition back to that, using that space at least most of the time. Although I've kind of got used to, it's kind of nice to be able to paint at home too. So it may be kind of a few days down there, a few days here, that kind of thing. Or if I have multiple projects working, I can have something going on here and something going on down there. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, a typical day, I guess in a usual time frame was when I would go down to the studio, get there at 9 o'clock, whatever, 9:30, 10, whatever, and paint for probably 5 or 6 hours, and then head back home. I mean, that was kind of what I did. But a lot of it depends on how many commissions I've got, and what the deadline is on those. So sometimes I've been in situations where I'm under a really tight time frame to get paintings done. I did a couple of really big paintings for the Royals that were commissioned that are in Kauffman Stadium right now. I did the big World Series celebratory painting that's
nice.
that's like 6 feet by 8 feet, and I was under a real tight deadline with that. And I mean, we literally, they wanted it hung before that next season started, after they won the World Series, in their main lobby, and we hung it up. It was still wet. We had to go back. My assistant and I, the one on the Strathmore cover, Aaron, I had to go back a couple weeks later, pull that off the wall, go into a room to put the protective varnish on it, and then hang it back up on the wall because it was still wet when we hung it. But so that one took me a while. And then I did a big, they commissioned a big 50th anniversary painting for me that was 6 feet by 10 feet. And that was to celebrate the season a couple of years ago where they celebrated their 50th anniversary.
Right.
So that had 22 portraits in it of, favorite Royals players all around the 50th thing and the stadium and all that. And that one, they moved the World Series one to the Crown Club, and then that 50th anniversary one hangs in the main lobby now. And that one again was on a real tight. I worked like probably 6 weeks straight on that one without ever taking a day off. I mean, just going down there, bam, bam, working every day. And so that gets kind of crazy, but it's fun to do something, like that gets, a lot of notice and stuff for the Royals. And
a lot of eyes on it too. Yeah, that's
impressive. I did the Chiefs one. That's actually,
I can see part of the Chiefs.
It's sitting sideways.
Yeah,
that's actually a print of a 5 foot by 7 foot painting of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And the original of that one is actually at the Leopold Gallery in Brookside right now. But we sell a lot of prints of it. So a lot of these sports ones that I've done, we do sell lots of prints, mainly on canvas kind of prints. But so that's been kind of fun. That's been new in the past couple of years, really. Kind of the print sales. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I imagine especially the last few years here in Kansas City, it's been pretty popular.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so the Royals are back at it again too.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're kicking it.
Yeah. May get commissioned another one.
Yeah, you never know.
So what is time crunch? Would you say that's the most, if you ever had a complicated piece, like one that was really tough, would that be the thing that made it tough? Or is there a piece you've done that was complex for a different reason?
You mean aside from being under a tight time frame?
Yeah, I would assume the time, it sounds like anyway, that, I mean, you took to it like nothing this whole career. You picked up on a whim. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming from the sound of it that the really the only thing that sounds like it could be tough, make things tough for you, is the time crunch.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. I mean, because I do a lot of commissions, obviously when you're a painter, and you're doing a commission, you have to please the person paying for the commission.
Right.
So that makes it a little bit more difficult, sometimes, depending on what they want, what you're painting, that sort of thing, as opposed to just doing a piece like the skateboard one, which is not a commission. That'll
Okay.
just go in a gallery. So in that one, I'm free to do it however I want to do it, and I'm currently trying to get a little bit more abstract with my paintings, using well, even the Charlie Parker one, obviously that's not, I used a black and white image, as my reference for that, and
Yeah.
and decided to go with the different colors and stuff. But I'm trying to get more abstract with color and composition and textures and that sort of thing. So when I'm doing it on my own, I'm free to do whatever I want. I only
Right.
have to please myself.
Right.
Versus the commission ones, it's a little bit tighter. Somebody will come to me and they'll say, well, we need in fact, I just recently did a commission, through the Leopold Gallery and Paul Durrell over there. I did a commission of, a guy, a formal portrait commission for a guy down at Texas A&M. I think he was like the head of their engineering school or something, and they built a new building down there, and they wanted a portrait of him to hang in the lobby because they named the building after him or something. I think, I'm not sure exactly what the details were on it, but that was a deal where they sent me a few pictures of him, and I believe he's deceased. As I recall, I've done a lot of portraits for Texas A&M. I've never been to Texas A&M, but I've done a lot of paintings for him. And this one, so they would send me pictures. I would select one for the painting, see if and it all had to be kind of approved by the family. So in the various stages of the painting that I went through, I'd take a picture of it, send it to Paul would send it down to Texas A&M. They'd give it a thumbs up, or they might have a few could you make his jaw bigger,
Tweaks. Yeah.
I'm just giving you examples. But when you're doing a portrait like that, sometimes they'll have thoughts, and sometimes it can be a little trickier than other times. That one particular one went pretty smoothly, but occasionally I've had some where you get different requests from different people when you're doing portraits. I mean, could you make my face look a little thinner? Could you,
Yeah.
different, things like that, that you get, which is fine. I could do that,
Yeah.
and it kind of makes it fun when you do that kind of thing. But yeah, so that could be a little bit stressful occasionally. But
I would think. Oils or Photoshop and oils wouldn't be quite as easy as the digital version. So
right.
when you're given your own, like, where's your head go these days when you can paint whatever you want?
Yeah.
It sounds like abstract, but I mean, or more abstract, different variation colors, but where, like,
Well, yeah, it's still figurative. I mean, when I say figurative, that just means any painting with people in it, essentially, or where the people are the primary focus of the painting would be considered a figurative painting.
right.
And that's primarily what I do. Now I have done landscapes and seascapes and cityscapes and various scapes like that, but I'm primarily a people painter, and that's what I think my natural talent is being able to get a likeness of someone, and I can do that fairly easily, and people recognize that. So they know that if they ask me to do a portrait of them, it's going to look like and I enjoy doing that. So that's kind of my focus. Even going when I'm doing stuff for myself, I'm primarily doing figurative things, but as I said, I'm trying to add more abstraction to the figurative pieces, so it would still have that representational piece of the figure. So if I was using a particular model, for example, in a painting, you would be able to recognize her if you knew her. or she would be able to recognize herself.
Yeah.
And even though there would be a lot of abstracted elements in the painting, that's kind of, I'm trying to go more in that direction. And you might think that a lot of people who don't paint, don't draw, have a tendency to think, oh well, the abstraction's the easy part. I could never paint a face and make it look like the person. And you're talking about just going with the abstracted details and that sort of thing. But it's not easy. It's often, especially for someone like me who started out painting more detailed representational work, to try and slide into that abstracted window and add more abstracted elements to a painting. It's not an easy thing to do. Oftentimes and I'm learning as I go. So I think I'm getting better at it. You can't really see much of that painting there, but it has a lot of abstracted elements in it, besides just the figure and the skateboard. But yeah.
So is it for the challenge? Are you just trying to challenge yourself, or is there, you just?
No, it's not a challenge. I'm not trying to challenge myself. Well, maybe I am a little bit, I guess, but it's because that's the work that I like. When I go out and on social media, and so many artists that I admire and see their work on Instagram and Facebook and that sort of thing. I love the artists that are going in new directions with abstraction and everything, and the guys and the women that can paint really awesome pieces using figures, and they all have their own kind of ideas and from different people that they've been influenced by, and they add those abstracted elements, and I just love that. I mean, I love that. And I think that just painting a more formal kind of portrait of someone, or figures in more of a formal representational sense, is just gotten kind of boring for me. And it's just, I'm not, I mean, it's just kind of boring. I love to in a way challenge myself and be able to pull in these other elements and come up with different ideas to make that painting special, besides just having it look like somebody.
I get that. I mean, I get, keeping your own passion and your own interest in your own art fanned by trying different things. I mean, it's like chefs, wanting to change the menu up every once in a while.
Exactly. Right. You don't want to just keep making the same old burgers all the time.
Right. All right. So I have it's not a two-part question, but so do you, starting as you did in the early days, as you're figuring out, wow, I'm really good at this, is there any one influence that you had artistically that you can think of? Like, with that question, is there anybody that pops into your head? Or did you just kind of learn the basics and run with it?
Well, there were certain figurative artists that I admired, certainly, both contemporary and from the past. And if I was to name one, probably John Singer Sargent would be the one that I gravitated towards. Not that I painted anywhere near the way that he painted, but guy was just incredible. And I would go study his paintings in museums and just sit for an hour in front of one of his paintings and just look at the way he handled his brushwork and that sort of thing. And so he was a big influence on me. And then a more contemporary guy who actually just recently passed away last week, Richard Schmid, who was a huge influence on many artists around the country. He was an incredible artist, and he wrote a book that I have a copy of, that is basically has paint all over it, and the pages are all crinkled and earmarked and all that sort of thing. And he was a huge influence on me, even though I never actually had a chance to meet him or work with him one-on-one. But But yeah, just studying his work was a big influence on me. And then there's
Nice.
a ton of contemporary artists that I follow now.
Well, that was the
Follow their
second
work.
half of it. What's like when you mentioned Instagram, like people that you follow on Instagram, is there any one name and more if there is, but the first first one that comes to your mind is someone that's like, oh, they have a new post up. I'm like excited.
Yeah, there's a bunch, but one that just comes to mind right now is a artist named Jacob Hein, who does some just incredible abstracted figurative work. If you look him up, on Instagram or whatever, you'll see what I'm talking about. He just does just a young guy and does amazing work. With figures and abstraction,
Yeah.
combining abstracted shapes in the figure. And man, he did when he puts out a new painting, I'm all over it. I'm just studying it. In fact, when I work on a painting, when I'm working on a painting, like for example, the one behind me, I'll have images of some of these artists just well, how did he handle this? How did he handle
Right.
pulling the background up with the figure? Maybe I could try that a little bit and work with some of that. And so yeah, it's a tremendous help. Social media has been such a great tool for everyone, really, but for artists, man, it's like to have instant access like that to artists that you admire and see their work. It's tremendous.
That's, yes, definitely true. Well, we're running out of time. Where can everybody find you?
Well, I'm on no surprise, social media. I have a website. The website is williamroseart.com.
Okay.
That's my website, which I try to keep updated somewhat. I do pretty much on a regular basis, but I also have Instagram and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook, well, they could search me under my name certainly, but a lot of it is like on Instagram, it's W Rose Art is
Okay.
kind of the ID on Instagram that pulls me up, because William Rose is kind of a common name, and a lot of people out there with that name. But yeah, that's primarily. I'm on Twitter too, but I usually don't post a whole lot on Twitter. I kind of follow some people on Twitter and everything. But yeah. And I have a granddaughter that's trying to get me to do TikTok.
TikTok,
yeah. She's like 13, and she goes, "Oh, look at all these artists out here. It's great. You need to be on there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." But
seems like there's always another one to learn. As soon as I get one down, it's like, okay,
that's
no, now
right.
there's
That's
this one.
right.
We're gonna go there.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, I'll put all this down in the episode so everybody can find you. But in the meantime, thanks for having a drink with me.
Hey, it was my pleasure, really, Aaron. My pleasure.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
And that wraps up our visit. Remember, if you'd like to get together for a drink, just reach out. We'll put something on the books. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, do all the things down below. Till next time.